Good evening. This is Mary Lou Foster, and I'm going to try this again and see if I can make sure the orientation is correct, because I did one and you guys couldn't see me because I was sideways. Hope y'all are having a good evening. I know I'm a little later than I planned. I have been meeting myself coming and going. My husband had knee surgery 2 weeks ago yesterday, and I am the one who does everything: feeding the chickens, feeding the cats, taking out the trash. Hi Linda, let me know, am I sideways or is the orientation okay? There's a huge delay between what I'm seeing. In fact, it hadn't even popped up yet on my iPad, which makes it a little difficult to check everything out. Oh no, it looks good on the iPad. Make sure I'm muted. I am. Excuse me while I set that in front of me. So I'm going to show you the cards that we made in the card class this week. Most people got to come, a few didn't, so I always still like to show you the cards, kind of tempt you with new things. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I don't want to take a whole lot of time because I want to be conscious of that you probably have other things to do also. So the first card we're going to start with is the garden birdhouses. I collect birdhouses, so anytime I find a unique and different birdhouse, it usually goes home with me. So when I saw this stamp set, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to have that. And I got it, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have to share my love of birdhouses with my stamping friends. So we got to use this stamp set. And my inspiration for this one came from a Pinterest card. And it has two different techniques for coloring. That's what makes this card a little bit unique. I'm going to set it over to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp my birdhouses. So in the card kit, it's the card base is balmy blue, and there is a white, it's basic white now, not whisper white, panel that these birdhouses go on. And you may notice on the card that it's got a hint of blue on it. I'll try to hold it still so it catches up with you. What we did to get that blue is we used our balmy blue stamping pad and one of our new blending brushes. If you don't have these, they come 3 or 4 to a package. I think it's 4. And they're great for coloring. It gives, depends on how dark your ink is. Of course, balmy blue is a pretty light color. So it takes a little more rubbing to get it to actually transfer from the brush to your piece of cardstock. And no special cardstock is needed for this. Sometimes when you're watercoloring, you want to use the watercolor paper, but today I didn't. I just used regular white cardstock for the birdhouses. Those are going to be colored with watercolor pencils and a blender pen to soften the color on them. But we're pretending like this is the sky. And so it's okay if there's variation in the color and it's not just all solid blue. If I wanted it solid blue, I would have used a piece of the balmy blue. But since I wanted it just kind of that soft hint, not just the plain white, because my birdhouses are going to be mounted on that. And while I've got my balmy blue open, I am going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment. I made this one a birthday card. I try to vary the sentiments in my card classes so that you don't get 5 birthday cards. You maybe get 3 birthday cards. And this time we got one that could be an anniversary or a wedding card. And we have kind of a masculine looking card that's just a thinking of you card. I try to think of the different reasons that you would need to send somebody a card. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the blending brush out of the way so it's not interfering. And there is a branch in the stamp set. We're going to use that branch to add to the card. So let's get it inked up. I'm using soft suede instead of early espresso or black. I could have used black, but I thought, you know, I use black in nearly every card, so I thought I would do brown, because tree limbs are brown. They don't have to be. I could have done green, but usually the tree limb itself is not green. And I just kind of eyed it up. Came in from the side. The entire stamp is not stamped. It's stamped off a little bit here. So, got that card ready to do the bird houses. I'm going to close this. Whoops. I think I may have gotten it on me. It's alright, I had supper all over me too. It's kind of my day to make messes, I think. So we've got those two things done. You know what? It's going to drive me crazy having this overstamp on here. I'll bet y'all end up putting the fresh grid paper down. So I kind of measured it up and figured out about how much cardstock you were going to need in order to stamp your 3 bird houses. These have to be cut out by hand because there are not dies that go with this stamp set. This is just one of those independent of any, you know, it's not a bundle. Can't make it a bundle. There's not a punch that goes with it. But sometimes cutting things out by hand can be relaxing. That's my theory anyway. Alright, so my colors, I put both packages of the watercolor pencils in the box because some of the colors were in one and I didn't like all of them, and I'm like, oh, they need a variety to pick from. Not exactly sure what color here it is. Flirty Flamingo. That was what I went with for this tall house. And I'm not going to bore you with coloring the entire thing, but I did want to show you how the blender pens work. I try to use these things often enough that you remember, oh yeah, those are really fun to use, because you don't have to be perfect to color this in. When you use that blender pen, it's going to blend it, and it's going to look like, I hope I'm not shaking you too much. It's going to look like that you are an expert coloring person. And I don't color very darkly. So just go back and add some color where you want it. And then these blender pens come 3 to a package. They have a little bit of water in them. And to clean them, you just color off on your grid paper until it marks clear. And then it doesn't transfer any color. That end had green. Let's see what this end has. Yeah, this end is gonna, and it really doesn't. If you just keep marking until it marks clear, even though it may look like it's stained, it will not transfer that color. But now if you don't mark it till it's clear, I make no promises. I think it must have had a little bit of other color in it because I got a little bit of purple going on there. And I needed the early espresso for the roof. And I believe it's in this one. Maybe. Yep. So I'll just give that roof a little bit. And like I said, you don't have to color it in solid if you don't want to. So hopefully if you got a to-go kit, you've got some kind of marker, crayon, watercolor pencils, something that you can use to color your birdhouses. See? All those little white spots I left got colored right in. So like I said, not going to necessarily sit here and color everything for you. Let's get out the... And the neat thing about these, the color is on the side of the pencil. So if you think you know what it is and you want to double check, you just look at the pencil and it will tell you what color it is. Of course, yellows sometimes are really, really light and hard to make dark enough to actually see. But for this house, it worked really well. And go across the bottom here. Somebody, oh, hi Elaine. Golly bum, hadn't seen you since, let's see, where were we? Orlando. Isn't that where I met you? I think it was. This set is on your wish list. Yeah, it's pretty cute. And it will stay in my, this goes in this box. It will stay in my stash because I do love birdhouses. I can't get to it, but I've got a birdhouse stamp that Becky Backley sent to me as just a gift, because I said, oh, I love birdhouses. She's like, well, I'm going to gift this to you. And she mailed it to me. So I leave it up on my shelf and I think of her whenever I look at it. Early espresso, I guess we can use that for the roof. But you know, they're birdhouses, so they don't have to be any traditional color. They can be whatever you want to color them. And I'm not going to put that on real dark because this lovely blender pen is going to color it in, give it some shading. I think probably the Stampin' Blends are my favorite way to color, but I can't do everything Stampin' Blends, even though I want to. That's why I decided to use the watercolor pencils. So you'll cut those birdhouses out. Mine are mounted on Stampin' Dimensionals so that they're not just sitting flat on the front of the card. The sentiment is also mounted on a Stampin' Dimensional. And on the inside, hope each moment of your day is as special as you are. Hey Margene, good evening. I didn't make it at 4 o'clock like I thought I would. So per my usual routine, I'm not going to sit here and put this whole card together so that we can move on. There are bows tied and stuck on with a little glue dot at the top of the birdhouses, and I use 2 pieces of linen thread just to give it a little more definition. And I probably have not left myself a long enough tag. Elaine, I bet your brother-in-law makes beautiful birdhouses. We have bluebird boxes outside, and every now and then we'll have a family of bluebirds nest in them. That's my favorite. I've got a new little birdhouse I tried to get our house wrens interested in, but I haven't found the sweet spot for it yet. Nobody checked it out this year. I didn't leave it long enough tag. But see how that looks a little thicker? This one was just one thread. This was the double thread. So it's just kind of your preference, the look that you want for that. And you'll just position each birdhouse. You don't even have to do it in the order that I did it in. One caution when you're using the blender pen and just regular cardstock, you want to be careful and not get it too wet, or not to keep rubbing it, because it will, it's called P-I-L-L, peel, make little balls. The paper will kind of start coming apart. I first tried to color with the these blender brushes, and it was way too wet, so I pulled out the blender pens instead. So that is the first card. I'm going to leave the pretty card laying right here while I kind of gather my stuff up and get my spot cleaned out for the next card. And I always have to go back then and put those cards the rest of the way together. And since I'm doing 5, I try to make this be less than an hour. All right, so card number 2 is the really, really pretty one that I think would be great for a wedding or anniversary card. It's just black and white. My daughter-in-law, whenever they were planning their wedding, which I believe they're having their 15th anniversary. Yes, my son and his wife. She just wanted black and white. So that's, excuse me, kind of when I fell in love with black and white stuff. And I know my camera is a little bit crooked. And I probably, thanks for sharing, Margene. That's awesome. Let's see if I can straighten the stand without knocking everything off. Of course, because I want to make it move, I can't. You see my lovely arms. And this piece that's laying right here, that was one of the ones that I was practicing on when I was making this card. And I thought I had cleaned my workspace up, but I guess I didn't clean it up very good. Trying to get myself in there a little better. All right, so this one uses, I always like to show you the card case, so I give you the right name. Elegantly Said. And the fonts on this one are elegant, of course. And the beautiful lacy corner, the flower, it just looked like it needed to be made into an anniversary card or a wedding. And since I put True Love Stories Last Forever, the front of it definitely lends itself. And on the inside, I did use the happy anniversary. But you could use, like I say, customize it for what you need. And this is probably one of the easiest of the cards. There is stamping. I have already done the die cutting. And let me go ahead and fold this so it takes up less space on my table. And there. So I always write these little notes that I put in my tubs because I have 5 cards, 5 tubs, and I can't be everywhere at the same time. So notes about this card. Stamp your panel before mounting it on your black cardstock. Because a lot of people, they just start building their cards and they mount this on there and then they figure out that they still have to stamp. And it's going to be hard to do that and not get part of the stamp on this white part that you want it to stay white. So I always start out the evening by saying, be sure and look and see if there are any notes in there. Because I always make notes for you. So I'm going to separate them. I think it'll stamp better also. Get that up where you can see it. And this does not fully go on this white panel. It's another one of those that's going to have to stamp off. And I wish I had a piece of paper. I do. And then that way I won't mess up my background here. So for this upper corner, just kind of eye it up. And I'll look at the stamp and kind of estimate where it's going to end up. Because part of it's going to be covered up by the label. So it's not an exact science. It's not like, oh, you didn't go far enough over, or you should have stamped it further back. See how pretty that is? It just gets part of it on there. And then you re-ink it to stamp the bottom corner. And let me put in that one. This time it's going to go, one side is longer than the other. It's a scrolls and it's a different shape, a different pattern. Here's where my corner is. And just stamp that on there. That is. And since I used that, now my grid paper stayed clean. I'll try not to shake you when I clean off my stamp. So basically that's all there is to do with that one. And then this one, the True Love Stories Last Forever. You can stamp it either this way or put the stamp pad down and stamp it this way, whatever you prefer. No one is grading you on that kind of stuff, I hope. not, I might have failed. You know, one time I did fail a chemistry midterm test. I was devastated because I didn't fail tests. And I got home and I asked my mother, what would you do if I told you that I had failed a test? And she's like, well, nothing. What did you fail? My midterm chemistry test. I didn't fail the class, but I was definitely over my head in that class. I was a sophomore, and it was the senior class valedictorian was in that class, and the instructor was writing his own textbook. Well, I'm a visual person, and I have to see stuff. I have to be able to read it and touch it and hold it. I didn't know that about myself at the time. And we were trying to learn the metric system, grams and milligrams and centimeters, and it was more than I could master. It took years. When I went to nursing school, when I was 30, I enrolled in nursing school, and because I had had high school chemistry, I didn't have to take it in college. Thank the Lord, because I don't know if I would have passed it then. But it's amazing how much nursing is based on the metric system. We do things in grams and milligrams and milliliters and centimeters, and it actually stuck better than I thought it did. But when I was doing it, I didn't think it was sticking at all. It was like Greek. Also took Latin in high school as my foreign language. It was fun. And a lot of English words, their root or base word is a Latin, starts in the Latin. And of course, medicine, a lot of it's Latin. So that language, even though it's dead and not spoken anymore, can be useful in certain circumstances. This beautiful lace border is so, so pretty. I used it on the inside of the card. Whoops, I stuck my finger in it. I probably should ink it again, because now I think my finger is inky, but the stamp isn't. And I'm going to push it over, hopefully, so you can see. Plus, hold it down so it doesn't accidentally touch my stamp before I'm ready for it to. Ta-da! Isn't that pretty? It just adds a cute little detail, and it already has a straight edge for you. I might have been off just a little dab that it's too high on that end, but when you do your writing in there, I don't think they're going to notice that. If you got it in the mail, you'd probably look at it and go, I see, she missed that. All right, happy anniversary. Where are you? Here you are. I'm actually going to finish this card, I do believe, just to say I have one done. Let me pull it over a little bit. Maybe I won't have my head in the way. And maybe I'll get it straight. Oh, I did. Only get a little dab of black. But that's okay. We had ink going everywhere Tuesday night when I had my card class. It's been a long time. I had 5 stampers, and I've been keeping it to 4 during COVID, because that way I could definitely space this out far enough. I have a really small kitchen. Can't really do it in the front room because there's too much furniture in there. But there were 5 of us, and we were spread out pretty good. I'm just not used to having that many people. So there you go. True Love Stories Last Forever is done, except for embellishing it. And so what I'm going to have to put on this one, we use the elegant gems, elegant faceted gems, because after all, this is elegantly said. And I started with the clear ones, and we ended up with frosted ones. And now all that are left are the pretty pink ones. But I decided, you know, I'm going to use the pretty pink ones on this card, and I think it'll add, I hope, I haven't messed up the card after all of this. I think that works, black and pink. Hey, Luana, I hope you're still there. I'm making cards. How are you? Yeah, black and white is very classy. And then that little dab of pink just kind of sets it off just a little bit. with a little bit of sparkle. So that would be a really pretty one to wish somebody happy anniversary. Okay, I had to reach over there. I have a table set up here in my room so I can switch out my tubs as we go. Make that one under there for just a minute and get this one out. This is the masculine one, because lots of what we do are very feminine and flowers and that kind of thing, and sometimes you want one that's not quite as frou-frou. I don't know what in the world's going on here. Looks like we've got some extra cardstock, and now that tree limb has decided to grow over the leaves instead of under the leaves. So for this one, the card base is Early Espresso, and the piece of designer series paper is from In Good Taste. And everybody pretty much had a different piece because I had to go through and make what I had kind of stretch. So mine has the darker, it looks like paneling, the piece I'm going to use tonight, and it wouldn't look good on that side. I tried that side and decided that the wood grain looked a lot better with the tree, so I went with wood grain. So that will be mounted on the card base. I'm not going to sit here and do that. You guys kind of know how to do that. And this goes on the inside because it's a dark card, and in order to write on it you need the lighter panel on the inside. They had a piece of designer series paper to use just as a little detail on the inside. This says a little note, so I didn't try to make it be anything except just blank inside. Maybe you just need to write a note to somebody thinking of you, or congratulations, or you could still say happy birthday on that one. So it's a masculine look. I had a request for masculine looking thank you notes one time, so that made me kind of stop and think, okay, everything we do ends up being kind of feminine. So we've used the dies out of The Beauty of Friendship, and I didn't use any of the sentiments out of this, but I put it in there because this is a bundle, Beautiful Trees dies. And it's kind of, I debated how to do that tree, and I decided, you know what, we're just going to use the dies. We're going to cut out the tree trunk and the leaves. And the only stamping then is the little sentiment that says a little note, and that came from the Enjoy the Moment set of stamps. So this is soft suede, which is brown without being blatantly brown. And now, to make this tree a lot easier to stick on the tree trunks and I used adhesive sheets, because that'll put some adhesive on the back of this old olive without it being. What I ended up doing on mine is using my fine tip glue pen and sitting there and putting enough glue so that it would stick. And the only thing about these adhesive sheets is they do try your patience, because you have to kind of fiddle and fiddle and fiddle until you finally get them to come apart, because it has the cover paper that keeps it from sticking everywhere. Now this side is adhesive, and I can feel it with my finger, and you could see when I pulled away. And I'm just going to put it on the back of my old olive, and then whenever I take my die, it kind of doesn't matter how much sticky I've gotten on the back, just so I have some sticky. So if y'all will hang on for just a minute and pretend like you're listening to some nice elevator music, I'm gonna go cut these out. I wanted to show you the adhesive thing, so that's why I didn't already have it done. And the neat thing about it, they'll both fit on the same platform and go through at the same time. So it only takes one roll. And I'm back. And I have to go off camera to do it because my table is flimsy. It's just a 4-foot folding table. So if I tried to use that die cutting machine over here, you guys would be shaking so bad you're like, oh my goodness. The other night, one of my friends, well, I call her a friend, Leticia, over out in California, was doing her live, and that's when they had the earthquake. And she's like, oh my goodness, earthquake, I'll be right back. And she stopped her live to wait till the earthquake got over. And then she came back on. It's over. Well, that was fun. So Patty was talking about that in the update this week. I always go ahead and clean my dies up. If you leave these little pieces in here, it keeps it from cutting very good the next time around. And then the only thing about these adhesive sheets, sometimes it does make it a little more difficult. And yeah, I'm going to bore y'all and sit here and punch these out because I want you to see how that's going to turn out. Ouch, poke myself with the pokey tool. We laugh about it. I'm supposed to be using the U-Pick-It tool, but that thing is so heavy. Somebody had a good idea, and it is kind of convenient that it holds several tips. You're not having to always figure out, what did I do with that? Because it's right there. And honestly, I don't use those other things, so I just use this old one. Now, you can see where the adhesive sheet is on the back. And the reason I didn't really worry about making sure that it was sticking up here at the top is this is mounted on dimensionals, so it's not even going to touch the card right there. Throw that away. Now, I am going to have to apply my adhesive to the back of this, and I went and got myself a silicone sheet so I could show you on camera how to use that silicone sheet. And the next little trick is trying to get my seal to roll like I want it to. Oh, it's going to work. So for the tree limbs, I would recommend turning that and working from the thicker area out towards the thinner area, because then you're not worried about accidentally pulling off some of the limbs. And I'm not going to try to get that adhesive all the way out to the edges, because it's not gonna, and it's just centered on this die. I use the Hippo and Friends to die cut these labels. Sometimes my card kits end up using several different dies, now it always overdoes the sticky, and so you just take your finger and gently remove that's sticking where you don't want it. And the other thing about it, this is going to cover up a lot of that anyway. And so your leaves, you can kind of see there's a flat edge here. There's a bit of a flat edge here, but when you turn it this way, you can obviously tell that the top of the tree is right here. So the fun thing about these adhesive sheets now is getting the release paper to let go, getting it peeled off. It peels off easily. You just kind of work it around, and if you've got a stubborn spot, piercing tool to the rescue. Take that off there so you can see. It might stick to my background, but this way you'll be able to see better. So I'm just kind of eyeing up where the top of the tree is to kind of figure out how high to put this on. Because, you know, trees aren't perfect, so sometimes you have branches that are hanging down that don't have leaves on them, and usually not at the top of the tree. So that's why I tried to make sure that it was up. And so you've got your tree built. I'm gonna see if I can get I have more trouble trying to roll this stamping seal, that I hate to do it on camera, because if it works really good, it works really good. And if this one's getting close to the end of the roll, and it gets harder and harder to make it cooperate with me. So kind of center that up, because I want to go ahead and put this in somewhere. I have a bone folder, but I'm just going to use my finger. One thing I nearly forgot, and some of the girls did, is to wrap your twine around. Ooh, it's thundering here, y'all. I bet Linda and Margene can hear it too. And leave yourself a tail so you can tie a bow. And now you get to watch me tie a bow on live Facebook. Actually, I'm usually not too bad with tying bows. Oop. Except today. Pulled it right out of my hand. See if I can find where it goes under there. My fingernails are in such bad shape. I'm used to using them in situations like this, and they're just, I have to cut them every morning because some part of them breaks off and I can't stand it when it hangs in things. The crazy things you find out about people on Facebook Live, huh? Alright, so get our dimensionals. It just looks better if it's not sitting flat on the card. But if you forget, oh well. No one is going to know that it maybe should have had dimensionals under it. And this one is kind of off to the side. It's not really centered because you've got to have room for your sentiment. Get those out of the way. And then that's what this goes on. I'm not going to stick that in there. Let me get a little note. It is stamped in Early Espresso. And up here where you can see it. Every time I set up, I try to set up so that I'm high enough up on my table. Not too bad. Could have been inked up a little better, but it wasn't, so we'll go with it. Then you may notice this has just a bit of a slant. It's not straight, it's not flagged, it's just slanted. So I started that corner, and then you can angle whatever you want your angle to look like. And then glue dots to the rescue, or a dimensional out here on the end where it's hanging off. And I think I'm going to use a mini dimensional out there. A regular size one will fit, but this is only a 1/2 inch. Let me get glue dot. And my roll of glue dots are backwards. Yep. I've gotten used to it, but I ordered another box and I had my fingers crossed when I opened them. And I went, yay, they're right. Because I've had them backwards now. I don't know how many boxes in a row. And I don't feel like I should call demonstrator support just for that. It's like, get over yourself and figure out how to use what you got. There you go. Just simple. You know, the only stamping you have is the little note. You could make it be happy birthday, and that'd be a really cute masculine card. If masculine cards can be cute, I don't see why not. Clean this stuff up. So that was card number 3. No bling. It was really tempting to try to figure out some bling. I thought maybe just this bit of twine would give it just enough character that it was going to get by fine, just like that. So let me grab another kit. This one makes me smile. This Party Puffin. He's ready to party. He's got his birthday hat on. I have stuff kind of scattered out everywhere. This is the new in color called Polished Pink. And it is such a pretty color. Alrighty. You could do this in any color, And I chose polished pink because we had fresh freesia on another card and balmy blue on a card. So I tried to offer a variety of colors. And this card is definitely not difficult. Probably the most difficult is trying to get Mr. Party Puffin to stamp properly. He's pretty persnickety. He is a red rubber stamp, and you shouldn't have to use a piercing mat to make him have good contact with your cardstock in order to stamp well. But I don't know, I had to stamp him like 5 or 6 times to get that one to look good. And I did resort to a piercing mat. I'm looking for the Stampin' Up one. I have one that's contraband, you know, not Stampin' Up brand. That's what contraband is. So I think for the Facebook Live, I am going to use the piercing mat. This circle is cut out with the layering circle dies. And I just picked a size. It's around 2 inches. That's big enough to look okay on the... Oh, I cut the wrong size label. Well, that's what I'm going with for this one. Anyway, these are the... Yeah, there's one missing. Here it is. So when I cut mine out, I should have used this large one, and I used the next size down. But it's still going to be fine. A tag is a tag. These are called tailor-made tags, and I like them because there are 4 different sizes. So you could layer them, or you could stack them and tie them together because they do have the little, what are those called? Ring protectors? We used to get them for our notebook paper, to keep your notebook paper from pulling out of notebooks. That gives it a little... we're going to tie the ribbon in ours. So I'm going to stick that in there. And let's see if I can get Mr. Party Puffin. I'm going to do him down to start with. I don't even know what time it is. I'm not at an hour yet. Reinforcements. Yeah, that's what it was. I hate it when the words don't come. And I'm like, yeah, you know. So the circle that I picked is just the right size. It might be just a dab too small, but to go up a bigger circle, it was going to be overpowering. So he almost fits. Let's see if he's going to stamp nicely. His little poof may be off, or part of a foot. Yeah, part of his foot. Well, he stamped okay. I like it better when it's solid like this one. So, I probably will redo him. But that's my only thing with Mr. Party Puffin. That I guess because it's such a large area, you know, and it looks like it's stamped or inked all right. And I can try doing it this way. I think they were talking about that on the group. Am I up where you can see? Nope, see, it just doesn't want to. And this is good and wet because I've re-inked my pad. And, I mean, you can kind of see the... Let's turn it over. This is one of my notes that was in a tub. Anyway, you get the idea. I love this Party Puffin. Just makes me smile. Sorry, it just makes me smile. We did one last month, and I picked a different design so I could use him again because he makes me smile. And we used Stampin' Blends, gasp, to color. And his, let's see what colors we got. This is the dark pumpkin pie and the light pumpkin pie. Probably my favorite oranges. And then the dark polished pink. And I didn't put the whole selection of markers or Stampin' Blends in the box. I chose the colors because I wanted them to be very bold. And I might have used the light polished pink whenever I made my sample, but I'm using the bullet end of the Stampin' Blend. You don't need that big old brush for these little teeny tiny places, because that's like overkill. And this little bullet end colors it perfectly. You notice brush, bullet. These Stampin' Blends, they just make you look like you're an expert. And then around here, you need that bullet, because that big brush would end up coloring your polka dots. Easy, easy, easy. The paper is from the In Color variety pack, and I just chose the plaid. You could use the other side, but I just thought the plaid looked really nice with all the white. It made the white design of it show up. This is mounted flat, and I think I'm going to wait and cut the correct size. And hopefully down in your envelope you have a piece of ribbon. For some reason or another, that one didn't have ribbon. Oh, it did too. It's right there. Duh. And it's just tied in a knot. Nothing fancy, no bows required. Just push it through. Yeah, Elaine, I see your comment about stamping it first and cutting it second. And I did that on mine, but I decided to provide the circle already cut for my card class for several reasons. But it might have accomplished that. And when I tried to go up a size in my dies, it was just so big. Because actually, probably the 2-inch punch would have been perfect, but the 2-inch punch is retired. So, and he's fine. See, this one, he could have been up a little bit, but so this gets mounted on there. Sometimes when I looked at my 5 card kits that I had a lot of other die cutting, and when you only have one die cutting machine, it gets it holds up production sometimes. So I make some decisions based on that, and the stampers that I know are coming, what they're capable of. Now, I use those lovely In Color gems on mine, but guess what? They're back ordered. So we had to use rhinestones in the class. And you know that little trick with the rhinestones. And Linda, you'll notice that yours have been colored, because these lovely stamping blends, you can alter your embellishments. And you just give it a little rub, and look at that, you've got pink rhinestones. I let them dry for a little bit, because if you get, if you rub them too hard, you'll rub off the color. But that's a neat way to make your embellishments kind of match your project without having to just settle for something. They were perfectly cute clear, but that was a trick I could show that, okay, well, the In Color gems are on back order, and I don't know when they're going to be in. So how about if we just color what we have? So there's Mr. Party Puffin. He's ready to party. And on the inside, whoops, it says happy birthday to someone who makes others happy. And one of his little friends is way easier to stamp. I didn't color mine, but you could totally color it to match Mr. Party Puffin on the outside. So he's pretty cute. I'm gonna do a card class for a little company here in town, and I think I'm gonna this will be one that we'll do, and I'll do it in, they can have their choice of colors. So some of them will be fresh freesia, some of them will be the soft succulent, magenta madness. They can pick their color, and that'd be pretty cute. And then we'll just deal with trying to stamp Mr. Party Puffin. I bet we'll figure something out. They're physical therapists, so I'm pretty sure they're used to kind of making do. All right, card number 5 is my favorite color. If you have followed me much, you know my favorite color is purple, orchid, those colors. So this card uses fresh freesia, gorgeous grape, and Highland heather. So when you're making card kits, you get to pick the colors. Some of y'all are probably going, oh no, not another purple card, but I'll try to do better. It's fixing to be Christmas, and we'll have greens and reds then. So this one used, it's not the right stamp set. It used color and contour. And the dies that go with that are color, scalloped contours. So you see tons and tons of cards using these frames, these dies. They are so useful. So even if you're using who knows what set, a lot of times they have pulled these to make their label, panel. It has different words depending on what card you're using. So the card kit, the card base is fresh freesia, and the piece of designer series paper actually is from Pansy Petals. It's the back side of one of the flowers. Who would have thought that pansies and the color and contour bundle would go together? But they do. Well, actually, fresh freesia is one of the coordinating colors. So, oh yeah, the dies in that bundle. This big one that has the scallop that punches out the little peepholes. This one has the stitch. This one actually cuts it so you can stick your fingers. Well, I can't get it off. That one makes just a cute label. In the, which card? No, it's going to be in my pansy class that we'll use this scallop border on a card. So, let's see if my this tape is going to run correctly, and I'll go ahead and put this. No reason why I can't put it on the front. So you can see that much. And kind of estimate. Should have flipped it over. And I'm not going to stamp that yet, but I am going to go ahead and show you the flowers. So this one is kind of deceptive because it's like you want to go ahead and get the die, and it's on a little magnet here and go cut your flowers. Well, if you do that and you come back and you're like, wait, what did you do? And I'm like, well, you had to stamp your flower before you cut your flower. Okay. So you get to stamp it 3 different times. And I'm going to stamp the gorgeous grape. Yes, gorgeous grape. You have to clean the stamp because I could have started with the lightest color, but I started with the darkest because that's how I had them stacked up here. Now I'll do Highland Heather. To me, Highland Heather should be darker than gorgeous grape, but and give that a stamp. And I'm not using the piercing mat. For some reason, this one works just fine. It is a photopolymer stamp, and I really should use the piercing mat, but most of the time my table makes pretty good contact with the stamps, and I get a pretty good image. Occasionally I'll have one that's contrary. The thing about photopolymer, you really kind of have to pause just long enough for that ink to move around underneath the stamp. A lot of us are guilty of doing it too fast, and it doesn't have time to develop. That's what I call it. Because if you watch, you can see the ink kind of moving, and you can tell where the stamp has come in contact with the paper and where it hasn't. And that's a good thing about the clear stamps, because you can look through and tell that. Now this die is a little tricky, but I figured out the secret. If you'll notice, there are 2 petals right here and sort of a square petal. And that's the only place on this flower that has that arrangement of petals. So that is your starting spot for lining up that die. How about that? And nearly all our dies have that secret, that there's one, I call it sweet spot, one spot that's different from the rest of the die that you can use as your starting spot to figure out how to line that up. And for this card, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one out right quick. So if you'll hang on a second, I'll go to my die cutting machine that is over here off camera, and I'll see if I can die cut it, kinda. Because mostly putting this card together. Now on the sample card, the center of these looks smudgy. Oh wait, is this the right one? That's Dark Highland Heather. That's not the one I want. I want light fresh freesia. Just to give it a little definition in the center. Let's see what happens when I do this. Yeah, I like that better. Doesn't even have to match. And then there's a stamp that has the little teeny tiny polka dots on it. And I use that just to add some detail, some definition, whatever word you would like to use for that. Just, it puts some splatters on the flower. And I'm just going to use the color I have in my hand because I think it's going to do fine. See? It just to me, it adds just a little detail. It's totally optional. And the rest of this one, alright, so the center of the flowers can be a genial gem. Mine actually were, I think I used the holiday rhinestones, but I didn't have enough of them for the whole class, so I had to go looking for what I did have. And I settled, my example card actually had those, my inspiration card. So that's what I'll end up putting in the center of these. And as you can see, what I recommended that they do on their card is stamp the Here For You Now just a little bit further down, and then take the second half of it because it's on two different stamps. And in Better Days Ahead on the inside, I went looking for a stamp to put on the inside, and I found Feel Better Friend, because this kind of sounded like maybe a Get Well card, or yeah, Get Well. But it made more sense to split it up. And then you can write whatever you need to on the inside. If you need to say Get Well, or thinking of you, or I always try to think that process through so that I have suggestions and you have an idea of like, what was she thinking when she did that card? Well, sometimes nothing, and sometimes here's what you can do with that. So I'm like I said, I'm not going to sit here and put this all together. I have posted 4 of the 5 cards on this page. I'll post the 5th one when I get finished. And I appreciate your time and that you took to watch with me. I just love making cards. This is my therapy. We talked about that, how it's just sometimes you've had a frantic time and you just come to stamp, and it's just an opportunity to sit and be still and be creative and express yourself in a different way. So my next card class, like Stamp Club card class, is July the 29th. I have my buy one get one free week. More information coming on that the week of the 19th, where you'll get to come and shop my retired stamps and buy equal value of brand new products. Say you buy $50 worth of retired product, you get to choose $50 of new product. So that'll be a come and go event. I'm not sure if I'll have a make and take or not. It kind of depends. It may just be a little shopping experience. And then my product-based class in August is Christmas in August. I ran out of dates for Christmas in July, so we can have Christmas in August, and that will be August the 13th. So information will come out about that. And other than that, if you have any questions or comments, I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate that. One of my Facebook Lives, it was just me, and I was just talking to myself, but people watched it later. So that's kind of what happens when they take their cards home to put together. They watch it 2 or 3 times. So I just appreciate it, and I hope y'all have a really great day. See you later. Bye.